Welcome back to the GCSE Maths Pro YouTube channel. This video for today is going to be everything about expanding brackets. So that is expanding single brackets, then double brackets, and finally triple brackets. Now, just a note that the triple brackets part is for higher tier only. If you're doing foundation tier, you can just check out the first two parts of this video. When it gets to triple brackets, just click off of it. You can ignore that part, okay? The first question is expand 3 and then in brackets x plus 2. Now, first of all, what do the brackets mean? What does expanding mean? Basically, that just means multiply. Okay, so we're going to be multiplying 3 times by everything inside the brackets. The way that I like to do it is by just drawing lines so that I don't miss anything when I'm expanding. I need to multiply 3 by the two terms that are in the bracket individually. So I'm literally just going to do 3 times x, which is obviously 3x. Then I'm going to do 3 times 2. And also we have to really pay attention to if there's any positives, negatives, and what's going on with that. Luckily here we've got positive 3 and positive 2. So it's going to be plus 6. That is literally it. We're just multiplying whatever's on the outside by whatever is on the inside. I can't simplify this any further because these two terms are not like terms. This one's 3x and this is just 6 on its own. They can't be combined any further. Okay, our next one is very similar, but we're now including some negatives as well, so really pay attention to that. We've got not just 4x, but minus 4x times by x squared minus 20. So first of all, minus 4x times by positive x squared. Okay, well let's just deal with the positive and the negative. Positive times a negative is a negative overall. Then we've got the whole number, so 4 times, technically there's a 1 here, isn't there? 4 times 1 is just 4, and then we'll look at the x's. Again, this is technically x to the power of 1, so x times x squared, same as we had before, is going to be x cubed. So just work through them piece by piece. The symbols, then the whole numbers, then the letters. Then we've got minus 4x times by minus 20. Now in this case they're both negatives, and when you multiply two negatives together they cancel out and they make a positive. So actually I'm going to put plus, and then 4 times 20 is 80x. Our next one, we have a few different letters involved. So you can see we've got expand 7xy times by y squared minus 3x. So again, just work through it piece by piece. So the first thing we've got, they're both positive, so that's good. We know that the answer for this bit's going to be positive. 7 times, technically there's a 1 here, isn't there, in front of the y squared, so 7 times 1 is just 7. X, now we don't have another x to multiply it by, so that just stays the same. And then we've got y, which again is to the power of 1, times y squared, which will give us y cubed. Then we can move on to the second bit, which is 7xy times by minus 3x. So first of all, positive times a negative is a negative. The whole numbers, 7 times 3 is 21. Then we've got x times x. Again, they're both x to the power of 1. So x times x is going to be x squared. And there's just a y there. There's not really anything to multiply it by, so that just stays there. We're going to jump right into the first question, which says expand and simplify x plus 2 and then x plus 7. If you've seen the first video, or you're already quite happy with the concept of expanding, it basically just means multiply. So we have this imaginary multiply symbol in between the two brackets, and we need to multiply each term in the first bracket by each term in the second bracket. There's two parts to this question, as you can see. Part 1 is the expand, which as we said is multiply, and the second part is simplify. Okay, so we're going to have one line of working for expanding, for multiplying, and the second line of working will be then to simplify what we've got. So our first line, I'm going to start off by using the method where I just draw lines between each of the terms, and I can make sure that I've got the right number of lines and I've multiplied the right number of terms, okay? That's the method I like to use because I think it's a bit faster. So we have to multiply the first term by both terms in the second bracket, okay? So the first term in the first bracket is x. I'm going to times it by then the first term in the second bracket, which obviously is also x. X times x, well, they're both positive, so we've got positive x squared. Then I move on and go, okay, let me get the same x from the first bracket and multiply it by the second term in the second bracket, which is not just 7, but positive 7, isn't it? We always have to take the symbol that's in front of the letter or the number, in this case, plus. So I've got positive x times positive 7, so it's going to be plus and then obviously x times 7 is 7x. Now that I've multiplied the first term in the first bracket, so the x, by both terms in the second bracket, I can then move on to the second term in the first bracket, okay, which is this 2. Again, remember, it's not just 2, it is positive 2. So I'm going to do 2 times x, they're both positive, so I've got plus 2x. Then I'm going to do the second term by the second term in the second bracket, 2 times 7, again, both positive, plus 14. Now, if you like to use this method and you do it in this specific order, you should end up with something that looks a bit like a piranha, okay? So you know you've done it in the correct order. If you've got this kind of piranha shape, there should be 4 lines, as you can see, and 4 multiplications that you've done. That is the expand part. So this bit is expand. So we've done that now, we can tick that off. Now we need to simplify. Simplifying with algebra pretty much refers back to collecting like terms, which a lot of people don't really remember what we mean by that. They've kind of heard of it, but they don't really remember what that actually means. So like terms are things like, are they both x's? Are they both x squareds? Are they just whole numbers? You know, what can we combine? What can we not combine? In this case, you can see the only like terms we have are these middle two. We've got a 7x and a 2x. Those are like terms. So in this case, I can actually add them together. So my simplifying line is going to be still x squared because there aren't any other x squareds to change that. But then I've got 7x plus 2x, which is plus 9x. And finally, I've still got the plus 14 because, again, that's a whole number on its own. I don't have any other whole numbers on their own. I don't have any other like terms for the 14. So once we've simplified it, most of the time, not saying all the time, but most of the time, you're going to end up with 3 terms, okay? So you started off with 4 terms here, and now we've got 3. So that is your answer. Expand and simplify, we've got x squared plus 9x plus 14. Because we multiplied 2 of these x's together, we've ended up with a quadratic. This is a quadratic, isn't it? So you should end up with something that looks a little bit like ax squared plus bx plus c, okay? I know it says plus, it could also obviously be minus, but this is the standard format of a quadratic. And obviously a, b, and c will be numbers depending on the question. Okay, so we're just repeating ourselves again. However, you can see this one's a little bit different because we've got a negative in front of the x, but our process will still be the same. So expand and simplify, minus x plus 4 multiplied by x minus 15. So I'm going to do the first 2 terms multiplied together. So I've got minus x times positive x, which we know will be a minus x squared, okay, minus x squared. Then I've got minus x times minus 15. So 2 negatives make a positive, and then x and 15 would make 15x. Then I'm going to move down and look at the second term of the first bracket, which is 4. This one's positive. So positive 4 times x is positive 4x. And finally, positive 4 times negative 15. Positive and a negative makes a negative, and 4 times 15 will make 60. So we've expanded. Now we can simplify. So step 2, simplify. Again, as I said before, if you do it in this order, you should just find that the 2 like terms, or the 2 x terms, will be in the middle anyway. You can just add them together in this case. Minus x squared stays the same. 15x plus 4x is 19x. And the minus 60 is at the end. Okay, so now we have simplified as well. Okay, so keep pausing the video, trying out these different questions and see how it goes. So 5x times 3x, well, they're both positive. Then I'm going to do 5 times 3, which is 15, and x times x, which is x squared. Then 5x times 4, again, they're both positive, so plus 4 times 5 is 20, and the x is still there. Then we have minus 9 times 3x, so that will be a negative 27x. And lastly, minus 9 times positive 4, which will be minus 36. Okay, so we've expanded. Now we're going to simplify. Just those 2 terms in the middle, both x terms can simplify. So 15x squared. And 20x minus 27x will give me minus 7x overall, minus 36 at the end. Okay, so the second part of this topic for expanding brackets is we're going to do it in the exact same way, but I just want to really highlight a specific type of quadratic. So we've got here difference of 2 squares. Okay, and I'm going to show you what that means once we've expanded these brackets. So we're still going to do it in the exact same way. Expand and simplify x plus 4 times x minus 4. So exactly the same. Expand. X times x is x squared. X times minus 4 is minus 4x. And then 4 times x is going to be plus 4x. And finally, 4 times minus 4, so positive times a negative is a negative, 16. I simplify in the exact same way. I've still got my x squared, but I know that these two in the middle I'm going to add together. However, can you see that I've got minus 4x plus 4x? Well, that should cancel out. That's going to give me 0, isn't it? Okay, so those cancel out. You don't even have an x in this case. And then we still have minus 16. So actually, while I said obviously most of the time you're going to get a quadratic that looks like ax squared plus bx plus c, you might end up with a scenario where you just have ax squared minus c. In this case, it's minus. That's absolutely fine. Still quadratic. You've still expanded it specifically, but it's just called difference of two squares. And what we mean by that is, well, x squared, that's a square number, isn't it? Clearly, that's x times x. And then we've got 16. Well, we know that's a square number because we literally just did 4 times 4. And finally, difference means when you subtract, isn't it? If they say find the difference between these two numbers, you would subtract them. So the difference of two squares is this format here. Now, this will just relate to factorising and actually it even relates to surds. It relates to a lot of other topics. It's just more so at this point that I want you to be able to recognise this format. Do you see how the brackets were identical except one was plus, one was minus? So if you have two sets of brackets where they are basically the exact same thing except one is a plus, one's a minus, it will create this difference of two squares situation. Okay, so don't get worried if the middle bit cancels out. That can happen sometimes. So that is everything on expanding brackets. That was our final video for triple brackets, which, as I mentioned at the start of the video, is for higher tier only, okay? So if you are foundation and you've got it this far, that's great, but you won't technically need this in your exam. Thanks for watching the video. Leave a comment down below, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.